All right, welcome. Today, we're jumping into just one really provocative chapter from a book called The Great Controversy. Now, our job isn't to agree or disagree with it, but to break down what it's actually arguing. It makes a pretty startling prediction about religious freedom in America, and we're going to unpack it based only on what the text itself says. Let's get right into it. So the chapter kicks off with a question that, let's be honest, feels pretty wild for a country like the United States. It's asking you to imagine a future that seems to completely contradict its past, a future where your freedom to believe isn't a guarantee anymore. This one question really sets the stage for everything we're about to explore. And boom, right away, the book drops its central, pretty shocking prediction. It claims that some of America's major Protestant churches are eventually going to use the government's power to make people follow their rules. The author says that when this happens, they'll have basically created a copy of the very religious system they once protested against. I mean, that's a huge claim, and the rest of the chapter is all about trying to back it up. Okay, so how on earth does the book even begin to justify a prophecy that big for America? It doesn't really present this as a maybe or a possibility, but as something that's definitely coming. Let's dig into how it builds its case. And this is really the key to the whole argument. The book says this isn't just some random guess about the future. No, it claims that what's coming to America is the final domino to fall in a long repeating pattern from history. It's saying this isn't something new, but more like the final act of a very old play. So what is this pattern it keeps talking about? Well, this next part is all about the historical examples the book uses to say, see, we've seen this movie before. So the text just lays it all out like a historical rap sheet. It points to the persecution of the first Christians by Rome, then to the Crusades against groups like the Waldenses, then to the Reformers being punished for challenging church doctrine, and even to nonconformists in England being thrown in jail or kicked out of the country. And here's the common thread the book wants you to see. In every single one of these cases, you had a powerful religious group using the government to crush anyone who disagreed with them. So after running through all that history, the book basically says, okay, you see all this? It's not about different events. It's one long fight over one single idea. And that right there is the heart of this chapter. The whole thing comes down to this idea of a battle for conscience, a massive struggle over your right to believe what you believe. Okay, so let's get specific. What exactly is this liberty of conscience? Well, the book breaks it down as the absolute right for any person to worship God the way their own heart and mind tells them to, without anyone forcing them. And it argues this idea isn't just some nice thought, it's the absolute foundation of both the Protestant Reformation and the United States itself. And this slide, wow, it just puts the two sides in stark contrast. It's pretty powerful. On one side, you've got the US Constitution saying the government can't touch religion, but then on the other, the book pulls a quote from an 1832 papal encyclical that calls the very idea of liberty of conscience a pestilential error. According to the book, you just can't square these two ideas. They're polar opposites. And to really hammer this point home, the author pulls out this quote, which it attributes to a Bishop O'Connor. The book's take on this is pretty blunt. It's arguing that any tolerance shown by the Roman Church is just a strategy, a waiting game until it has enough power to enforce what it truly believes. Right, so this is the big question, isn't it? If the US was built on this idea of freedom, how could it possibly all fall apart? Well, the book has a very specific answer. It's going to happen because of a powerful new team-up. The text predicts what it calls a threefold union. It says first, major Protestant churches will join forces. Then they'll connect with what the book calls spiritualism. And the final step, this new Protestant spiritualist group will then join hands with Roman power. And according to the book, these three are the players, the aggressors, that are going to team up to tear down American liberty. So you gotta ask, what in the world could bring these groups together? I mean, historically, they haven't exactly been best friends. Well, the book says it all comes down to one thing they can all agree on: getting the government to pass a law that forces everyone in the country to observe Sunday. That one issue, the book says, is the spark that lights the whole fire. And this, of course, leads us to the book's final, pretty chilling warning. It's all about what happens when this powerful union gets what it wants. So here's the logic the book lays out. It argues that since you can't find a command for a national Sunday law in the Bible, you can't enforce it by appealing to people's faith. So what do? The book claims that that gap, that lack of divine authority, gets filled with something else: raw government power,
with oppressive enactments.
And this is where it all leads. The book paints this picture of a future time of trouble. It basically says that anyone who stands up and says, "No, my conscience won't let me follow this law," well, they're going to face some serious consequences: civil penalties, persecution, and losing their rights. So we're left with the ultimate question that this forces on the reader. It boils everything down to a single choice with no middle ground. When the laws of your country go against what you believe are the laws of God, who do you obey? And the book's final word is that this question, it's not just theoretical. It's going to be the ultimate test of conscience for every single person.